but I think the world is moving in the wrong direction entirely. Entirely. And I think there are bold changes, and just like people are going to like me saying something like this, where it's just like I think it needs to be said. I don't like that now Trump, and I guess this could change topic a little bit, but in terms of the extremists, I don't like that Trump has the opportunity to likely be able to choose another Supreme Court justice or two, and now due to chance, our system has a disproportionate amount of conservatives. Which,
man, not just this part, it could be like 5 of them from him, right? But from one man. That's
and
crazy.
Now it would be considered as extreme for me to say, you know what? Maybe a system needs a balanced judicial court, and maybe we need. And then you're messing with the Constitution. That's extreme. I'm like, some things, I think, and it's unfortunate, but I think it's time for Democrats.
Changing the Constitution isn't extreme. I mean, that's what we got amendments for, right?
So, like, it is considered extreme, though. It's just
sorry, go ahead.
Even getting rid of the filibuster was considered extreme. So it's just like, in terms of public opinion, especially on the right, even on some of the moderate left, you're going to see that as extreme.
Well, what I'm saying is changing the Constitution is not extreme.
It should be considered extreme.
By itself, it's not extreme. Now, what you're going to change it to could be extreme. But like, again, if you're against changing the Constitution, you're saying you're against amendments, which doesn't make any sense because conservatives love the First Amendment. That wasn't in the Constitution. Second Amendment wasn't in the Constitution, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, but I think people don't think like that. I'll say, and this is another thing, I guess in general, and if I'm just going to keep on rolling on the honesty train, Americans don't care about American policy. And it's just like, and this election to me is a referendum on it. And it's just like, so it's, to me, I'd rather have reasonable policy and it have an overwhelming impact and start to break institutional norms when they should be broken, and for that to not be considered extreme. Because I think there are drastic changes that need to occur. So if there's a couple things, if they're going to be considered extreme, it's going to minimize what can be done.
So here are a couple things I'd like to do. First off, I don't think I'd be a good politician because I'm too honest and I'm too boring. And which is like, it's like, for the most part, my outlook is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which means that for the most part, my platform is going to be just do what we've been doing for the most part, right? Like, I'm not coming here to shake things up. Now, you know, the few things that I would do or like to do are, I think I would look for the things that are just kind of like the easiest or like the hardest to argue against, right? So now I don't think we'll,
best place to start.
Yeah, we would need a lot of Democratic support for this because Republicans ain't going for it. But like making, voting day a national holiday. It's like, why not? Why not let people not have to work when they go vote? Yeah, they won't go for it, but I would make them, argue against it. So JD, man, why don't you want folks to vote? Right? Why shouldn't it be a holiday? Right? And then he's got to say, well, the truth is because you don't want more people voting because you think fewer people voting makes it more likely for you to lose. So like trying to make like the election day a national holiday. I also think it'd be cool. Like I think one of the reasons we're extreme is because of gerrymandering and like how it works now is like, if your state is, happens to be, I think it's around census time. If it happens to be controlled by, Democrats, then it gets gerrymandered super pro-Democrat, right? You got a state Democrat seat. And if you're, conservatives, run the state legislature, then it gets super gerrymandered on the conservative side. Where like I think it'd be cool, like imagine we wrote like a software or something that just like takes the data from like the last major presidential election and it's straight objective and it just draws districts to be as competitive as possible. So instead of like drawing like safe seats everywhere and then it's only the most extreme people coming out because that if let's say it's a Democratic seat, Republicans aren't going to win. So it's just the most liberal person who come out of there. And then likewise on the conservative side. But if we had something that was like one software that just wrote the districts for all states, and it intentionally tried to make as many competitive districts as possible. Now you have to appeal to the middle.
But that's extreme though. To me, everything that you're saying, I think would be marketed as extreme, and to me, it's reasonable. But I think it would be like instituting a federal holiday for voting. That would be considered extreme. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be. I'm saying it in the mic. It should not be. It would be considered extreme. Having some sort of artificial intelligence or having some sort of software that competitively draws districts or creates the linings for those districts, that would be considered reasonable, considered extreme. And my whole point is that I think it's time for liberals to be unapologetic about what is considered extreme, and it's just reasonable. That's my whole point. That's where I think liberals have to be. If not, we are going to lose. And there is
draw a distinction, right? So what I'm saying about I'm trying to improve the system, right? So when I say we'll just give people the day off when they go vote, or when I say draw districts competitively instead of having a bunch of safe districts so we don't have incredible partisan shit, right? Those are, I think, pretty mild and tame changes. Contrast that with something else that Democrats want, which is removing the Electoral College. That's extreme, right? Like that's a lot more extreme. What I'm talking about is just low hanging fruit. Like give
that may need to happen. That may need to happen too. Though. It's just like replacing justices.
That's a more fundamental change. What I'm saying, like if I'm saying, hey, just let them give them the day off to vote. That's not that crazy. Or if I say, hey, let's just stop gerrymandering and let's have something that tries to make competitive districts, like that's not like that's a lower level of extreme than removing the Electoral College.
It's considered extreme, but to me, it would be marketed as extreme, especially on the right. I think I think it's reasonable. I think it would be marketed as extreme, and to even and that's where I think it's
well. Here's the difference. Getting rid of Electoral College is strictly pro-Democrat. Like that's what it is, right? Like it's partisan. We're like giving people the day off to vote isn't strictly pro-Democrat. Like it is effectively pro-Democrat, but it's not like strictly pro-Democrat. Likewise, turn it like reducing tribalism by removing safe seats. That's good for everybody, right? That's not now. It's bad for the politicians who are currently in office because they may lose their seats, but it's good for the country.
And I'm not saying that, and of course there are spectrums, and I'm not saying that I'm for removing it, especially with this election in particular. It shows that it does either way. He would have won. So it's just like, again, this is a referendum on the people. But to me, my takeaway is that I do think that it's time for the left to be unapologetically liberal, and I want to overstate that. And I believe, like I gave a preface for it with like saying that we need to be responsible and we need to understand that this is an emotional moment and we shouldn't respond to extreme. So like maybe, again, I'm a capitalist, so we don't go with maybe a $500 a month program right now, but like maybe securing the bottom and being unapologetic about it and enlarging our welfare state. That's something that's going to be seen as a handout. It's going to be considered extreme. But we go for it. And I'm like, maybe we don't replace the Electoral College, but we think about the Supreme Court justices, and that's considered extreme. And it's just like, I'm for these movements that I think are reasonable that would be considered extreme. And I'm tired of those glass doors stopping success because Republicans don't let it stop them.
I mean, the Republicans haven't packed the courts. Now they have artificially reduced the size of the court by not approving Merrick Garland under Obama. They play with the lines, but I think we need to be careful about becoming extreme. Again, like I said, my personal politics is very boring, and for the most part, like I'm not the type. Like I feel like. I think this is a problem with the left, honestly. I think this is the bigger problem with the left is we always got to run on some hope and change. Hope and change. Hope and change. And like we keep hoping and we keep changing. And it's like eventually, when are we done changing? Like when are we good? At what point is good enough? Like it's like, okay, we gotta, support, women so that women can vote. It's like, cool, and then it's like, all right, well, we got to support gay people too, so they're comfortable. Like, great, and it's like, all right, well then, trans people need to be respected too. It's like, all right, it's like, and the trans kids, it's like, what's that? And the female sports. I mean, hold on now. Give me a second. Wait. So, but like that's on social issues, but also on the economic issues too. At a certain point, somebody has to be like me eventually and go, all right, guys, we made it. let's just hold ground and not backslide at this point. Let's just hold it.
I don't know if that's a winning message, though.
It's not. It's probably not, man.
I don't think it's a winning message, and I don't even know if it's like. I get what you're saying, where we're all right, but it's just like it's. I don't think we all right, bro. That's where it's just like we're not. We're not.
Bill Maher and Ben Shapiro were talking about this. They were like, you got these young folks who think they're in the worst country ever. He was like, they just have no. Yeah. World, you understand history, complaining about this is ridiculous.
No. It's not that we're not utilizing our resources reasonably, and we're doing so disproportionately, and we're seeing it, and that's not all right. It's just like to say that we have and I get it, and that's where it's just like and we spoke about it in our last conversation where we're talking about how Americans feel relative to what the economy is. And I think what I'm saying right now is actually a little contrary to what I think the message should have been, to where exactly is what you're saying. Like, the economy is at the highest it's ever been. Oil production is at the highest it's ever been. That should be the message. But the American people don't feel that, because there are cracks in our system that need to be adjusted. Capitalism works, but it only works when there are caps on mergers and acquisitions, and there are regulation, and there are like.
Yeah, but that's normal stuff. Democrats have always been for that. That's not new.
But it's not something that we're marketing well, number one. And two, it's not something that I think most Americans understand. And that's another broader issue that I think American society, we just have a problem with in general. But I think it's time for us to enact changes to the system that I would deem reasonable. Like, it's just like to me, there should be, if you're making over $500 million a year or something like that, you should have higher taxes. Warren Buffett shouldn't be paying a lower tax rate than
this. Democrats have always been saying that.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you in particular. I'm saying Democrats right now, we have a losing man. It's not that we've always been saying it. I think we've been saying it and marketing it incorrectly, and I don't think people understand it. And I think it's time to enact the system, or enact those changes.
Well, I feel like almost every Democrat that I've remembered has said we're raising taxes on the rich. Like, almost all of them.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're not. Most Democrats, if not all Democrats, would, and to me, that's how you would pay for a program. But what I'm saying is, when you do that, to be unapologetic about it. I'm saying when that's done, we're not going back and we're not apologizing, or we're not listening to criticism that comes from raising taxes on the wealthy, or that being extreme to the system and what that's going to do to a trickle down economics, where maybe businesses are just going to lower wages and do all, like, we're not listening to what we perceive to be unreasonable. We're doing what we believe is reasonable, regardless of whether it's considered extreme. And that's my problem. That's where I think there's a nuanced difference. And to me, that is where the left has to be if we're going to win. And that's.
But I think that's where we are, though, man. Like, I don't think so. I don't
think so.
Like, we've always been for increasing taxes on the wealthy. Like, we've always. Obama said it. Hillary, Kamala, I mean, everybody.
But not in the context of disproportionately using that to expand safety nets, economic safety nets for the bottom.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So
That's my
we've been for increasing taxes, but it's not always tied to a new program.
Right. It's healthcare.
To me, it shouldn't have to be tied to a new program, right? It's just more healthy for the country. It just reduces that. If anything, it reduces the deficit.
You can do that, but I'm saying it to me, if that to me, I used that as an example of what I would consider a reasonable way of introducing policy that may be considered extreme. That
so you're tying it together. You're saying we need to raise taxes so that we can
exactly, and I think that is like, to me, that's a reasonable way of putting towards
what's wrong with just what we have. It's like we got unemployment. If you're working a job and you get laid off, we got welfare.
60% of Americans can't afford a $500 expense, like emergency expense. That's what's wrong. Even under Biden, they still can't afford it. That's what's wrong. That is something is fundamentally wrong there.
Poor people, man. That's how life works.
That's not how it has to be in the richest country in the world, and especially when we have our tax dollars. If they are being spent reasonably, it doesn't have to be that way. It's just like in the capitalist system, you have winners and you have losers, but you could have a respectable bottom, and that can be done unapologetically. And to me, the middle class, especially in a capitalist system, this is where I think being,
because it sounds to me like what you're doing is basically what you're saying is like welfare, but a higher limit.
Absolutely. And it's exactly what that's exactly what I'm saying. But it's just like, what would constitute that is just like maybe if going from 50,000 to 25,000 annually, or something like that. But and that would again lower the amount of people that would be eligible for it. Or you could then say that people would want to quit their job for $500 a month, which I think is a bad argument. But it's, to me, programs like that, initiatives like that are, to me, is where the Democratic Party, if I had to say what are some things that I would like to see us move, again, I started with it, socially moving to the center in terms of
I think that could do it alone. I think if we just move socially towards the center, that gives the conservatives less fuel for the culture war. I think we lose to the culture war. Almost every attack ad was always about transgender people. It was always culture war issues, right? If we don't have the culture war issues, then, and we stop the identity politics where we say we're for women and people of color and trans people, and then everybody except you. All right, if we stop doing that, then I think we're in a pretty good shape.
I don't think so, especially with all of the states now.
Like, you start rolling out huge programs.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, again, I think we need to be unapologetically liberal, and that's where it's just like even Bill Maher. I think that's something that it's time for liberals to stick up for liberal principles, and it may be considered extreme amongst liberals. It's just like
when Bill says that, he's talking about Islam.
But I'm saying it, and I'm saying it for that, and I'm saying it for economics, and I'm saying it for everything.